I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Cascade Charter Township Planning Commission for Monday, June 17th, 7 p.m. I'd like to record that all 7 members are in attendance. Please join me in making the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we approve the current agenda.
So move.
Moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Article 4, is there any conflict of interest with any of the issues that are on the agenda tonight? No. None noted?
Mr. Chair, I would
Yes.
make a motion that we approve the minutes of the June 3rd, 2024 meeting with the following addendums from Member Rissy.
Uh-oh. All right, I was gonna email these, but I did not have a chance, so I believe on Article 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down, it says Member Rowland asked for clarification on the deferred parking. I believe that should be asked. And then on right above the motion for Article 7, it says Vice Chair Rissy mentioned that the parking issue comes up often and there is usually asked for deferment often, and that the township's formula, and then that's the end of that. And I know sometimes I ramble and I'm not very clear, but I was wondering if maybe somebody could look at the tape and see if I was a little more coherent than that. And then I think I had one more. These are all minor. I'll find it here. It's hold on, I'm scrolling to get to it. The next article, Article 8, it says Vice Chair Rissy mentioned. Oh, I can't find that either. It does. So Vice Chair. It looks like you guys already made some edits.
I sent some changes and I think they made some edits as well.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, because this doesn't match what I had, so I think it's already been corrected. I didn't have this copy. I'm sorry. I apologize. That was my last one.
Any other changes?
I've got a few.
Bruno?
So on Article 3, there's just some grammatical. So master plan comment review and recommendation, that's a section. So you have everything capitalized except for the word review. I'm sorry, except for the word recommendation. Review capitalized but not recommendation. I'm sorry about that. Should a comma after Article 6, a comma after the word commission in the last line, comma after in Article 6, Tom Richardson, 3430 North Applecrest Court, comma. Village is randomly capitalized in the next line. And then kind of the past tense, same thing that Member Rissy had. Supervisor Grace Lesperance reference the 2022 strategic plan. I think it's referenced past tense. Article 7, the applicant was requesting, everything in that paragraph is past tense. First line on the page after the word Article 7. She recommended approval for the addition with the recommendations from the stormwater maintenance agreement is submitted and registered. That's not a sentence. So I think if you strike the plural of recommendations, take the S off and the word from, I think with the verb is, that's now a sentence. And then I got some material ones. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth paragraph down, and member Roland, I'll need your help on this.
Yeah,
The third line or second sentence, she stated that the applicant had a previous variance to reduce the total parking spots to 34. Isn't it by 34?
I think it is by 34 on that last, yeah.
Okay. Right above the last word in that paragraph, building, I think reviewed should be present tense review, under review. Seventh paragraph, second line, northernmost plane of the existing footprint, I believe that's PLA. Second line of the next paragraph is the same word plane as in devoid of detail as opposed to PLANE. Skip down to the paragraph starting with Mensarelli. They wanted to differ 128 spots. I think it's defer, DEFER. The next one, I have no idea, just it looked odd to me. Tom Wagner, 3930 Chris Court, CRIS. That might very well be correct. I have no idea. Just
Cersei just got. Minutes, because it seems.
and then another kind of material one, the ending of Article 7, number 3 says the applicant agrees that the private street is brought to standard and approved by township staff prior to construction. I thought the motion was specifically, we're going to allow them to bring it up to code after completion, which is why we're asking for a bond.
It was. You are correct.
Article 8, first paragraph, first line, planning director Hendrick presented the applicant's request, which included. As which include. And then Article 8, I think in the list that I provided the applicant, we had also requested sewer and water connections, including details on the lift station. He had mentioned the lift station would also be required, but it was nowhere in any of his application. Article 10, on the second page of it, right above Article 11, the second paragraph, it says Chair Moxley expressed support for retaining the density tables. I believe that to be Trustee Nordhook, because he's also the one that made the motion. I'm sorry, not made the motion, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. He's also the one that opposed, I said that wrong. I drew a line as well.
That's how I remember it as well.
Yes, I agree.
And then the bold of Article 10, Secretary Nordyke making a motion, seconded, made a motion, I think. And then Article 11, first sentence, the draft meeting minutes from the 20th, the draft minutes from the 20th, May 20th meetings were found to be insufficient. I think maybe the word is more erroneous. There was a lot there. They were just duplicative and erroneous, or something other than insufficient, error prone or something. And that's it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
can I just
Sure.
make one other correction?
yeah.
In Article 8, 3 paragraphs up from the motion. There's a paragraph that starts Vice Chair Rissy questioned whether a smaller building footprint, blah, 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 blah. I'm pretty sure, and I'd love to take credit for this, but I'm pretty sure that member Nordhook made that comment, not myself. Do you recall talking to him about a smaller building footprint? And then the developer
yeah.
countered and said that it was driven by construction costs and stuff.
Yeah, that was me.
That's what I thought. Okay, 'cause I didn't think I said it.
That it?
So I would amend my motion to include the amendments, Mr. Chair.
I'll support that.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Very thorough.
7:09 and we're just cruising right along, guys.
We're making progress here. Okay, I'd now like to acknowledge visitors and those wishing to speak on non-agenda items. feel free to come up to the podium and tell us your thoughts. Okay, everybody's here for agenda items, and anybody online?
Nick?
Nick? Okay. All right, I'd like to now move on to Article 7, case number 243839. The applicant is Alexandra Livingstone and Bonnie Miller at 7140 Oak Brook Street. Addison will present. As soon as Madison is done, we'll ask owner representatives to come up and give their opinions.
The applicant's gonna bring up a few more images she mentioned, but I'll just put these two here for now. Okay, we have an application this evening for 7140 Oak Brook Street, southeast. Alexandra Livingstone has been the applicant on behalf of Bonnie Miller, who is the resident and property owner. They are seeking approval for a type 1 special use permit for a 6-foot fence in the front yard with an 8-foot entrance gate in the front yard. This is the west side of Thornapple River Drive, just north of Shagbark, east of the Thornapple Village Center, if you can kind of imagine that. It's about a 1.49 acre lot in our R2 residential district. They've indicated they would like the increased fence height in order to keep out neighborhood kids that could possibly be injured on the property. If you look at the property, it's mentioned and shown on the plan that there's a creek running through it, and a detention pond or retention pond. So they're seeking approval tonight for that special use permit for an increased height in their fence. Just a little more information about the street. Oak Brook is a private street. It does dead end kind of right where this property is. Their house is nearly out of view. I don't know if any of you had time to drive by. The property kind of slopes down once you get to the end of the street. So you can almost not even see the house from the edge of the road. We did review this with accordance with our typical findings of facts for a special use permit. So those standards that we consider are to what extent the impact of an additional height has on adjoining neighbors. It is determined that the increased height may not have an impact on adjoining neighbors. We did receive comments from one neighbor wondering about how they would access their backyard, but as I mentioned, that's a civil matter that wouldn't be related to this review necessarily, and that the other note was just that the increased height would kind of change the aesthetic of that end of the driveway area. If you look to the end of the cul-de-sac, having an increased fence height would change possibly even how people turn around at the end of the road. But that's also not necessarily considered negative. Those are just some of the impacts we wanted to mention. The additional height, whether that would negatively affect the light or ventilation, I didn't see that as being an issue. It is a pretty transparent fence. As you can see, it's cast iron with light being able to go through it. I also did not see an outright traffic hazard, which is another factor to consider. It would block the driveway entrance, obviously, with the gate. The fire department would have to give approval for figuring out what their access would look like for emergencies. And that if they are to put in the gate, that it would not be permitted in the right of way. The other two considerations are whether it creates a fire or safety hazard. Again, the fire department would have to verify safety access through a gate if it were added. And that would be handled through the building permitting process. And there were no property restrictions that we found that would limit them from installing an increased fence height or gate. In general, when we look at type 1 special use permits for a fence, in the past, the planning commission has approved or granted permission for a special use permit in cases like deer protection we have done recently. Sometimes if it's a busy road like Cascade Road or a corner lot, those are some instances I included in your staff report. Just to consider when you have approved an increased height in the past. After doing the review, it was determined that we didn't recommend approval of the application as it is. But I did recognize that perhaps if you would like to approve, it could be with an exception that I have the following conditions with an approval. That any permits for the entrance gate should be obtained from the township building department prior to construction. That the entrance gate cannot be in the right of way. The fire department would review the entrance gate, but then that the maximum height for that entrance gate and the fence would be a maximum of 6 feet. And that a soil erosion and sedimentation control permit be obtained from the road commission, just because they may require that with the creek and the pond on the property. So that was the staff review. I don't know if you have any questions outright for me. Alexandra is also here and can answer questions or give her input as well.
Any questions for Madison?
Mr. Chair, Madison, I see on the diagram that there are 2 sheds on the property. I didn't see them when I was out there, and I can ask the applicant too, but correct me if I'm wrong, but those would be non-conforming if they are there. Is that correct?
A second shed would be non-conforming for the lot size being under 3 acres.
So it might be an opportunity to correct that as well.
Could be, yep, you could add it as a condition if you felt it was
Thank you.
necessary.
Any other questions for Madison? Okay, thank you.
And what you had mentioned that the fence itself, other than the gate, is 6 foot. But I think that's with the architectural feature, is that right? It's like 5 foot, 1.5 inches, then the extra features, that's with feature.
Yeah, let me grab the printout, and I think Alexandra she said she brought more detailed design plans today. So this is showing, yep, 6 feet with the addition, with the 5 inches of kind of ornamentation along the top of the fence.
Okay. And then the gate you had said was 8 feet, but that's actually without the architectural features, is that correct? So it's actually over 8 feet?
Correct. I believe in my site plan, I said that's excluding the
Just I want
additional height, which I can show that plan too.
It's just confusing me because one, it seemed like we included it, one we didn't, so I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, that's how it was presented. So this shows. Yeah, the plan shows an additional 1 foot 9 inches with the 2 ornamental features on the top of the gate.
Okay. So the reason I asked that is because reading your packet here, you had mentioned that the architectural features, which I wasn't aware of to this packet, so thank you for educating me, says that you're allowed them 1.5 times the permitted height. So really all that we're being asked is a special use for the gate essentially, correct? Because everything else is within.
4 foot is what
No.
was down in the front yard.
Incorrect.
That's true, because it's front.
It's front yard, so it'd be 4 foot.
Yeah, the maximum height for the front yard is
Yeah,
4
yeah,
feet.
Good point, thank you.
So, yeah, I was recommending they could increase to 6 feet as a majority
Reese?
for the safety.
Madison, my experience here with fences has been that we generally look at, I want to be careful how I word this, maybe this isn't the right word, but the average height of the fence. So if there was a very small architectural feature in one little spot, we wouldn't necessarily view that as a 9-foot fence for that one. You know, I know there was a site a number of years ago that it was a slope. And so the fence kind of did a jog as it went down the slope but there were 6-foot fence panels.
Mhm.
So in our view, it worked because then, you know, one side they were like 6'6", but the other side they were 6. So we kind of took an average there.
Yep, the average height from grade, yeah.
Okay. So would you say that I understand overall height wise, the concern there as far as 4 foot versus 6 foot? But
Yes.
what I'm asking is the specific ornament on top. Do you see that as something that would work with the average height of the fence? Or would you say, no, that's pushing it? We should
The fence around the perimeter, like not including the gate. The ornamentation is consistent enough that I would include it in the overall height. The
Okay,
difference with the gate is there's those 2 points extending an additional foot. So I would say the average height of 6 feet would include the top portion of ornamentation or architectural feature. Does that answer your question?
thank you.
Richardson.
Madison, you mentioned that there was a neighbor comment about accessing a backyard. I saw several comments submitted from various neighbors. That one that you mentioned a minute ago, I guess I don't recall reading that. Could you?
So there was one comment that came in, and I believe I forwarded you the concern as well today via email that he submitted. I didn't include it in part of my review because it would be a civil matter if he were to legally have access through her property. And Alexandra did submit a sealed and signed survey with her plan that did not show an easement for access. So for my review, I'm not concerned about that, other than that it was submitted as public comment that he was concerned about it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Other questions?
There's
Member
one last one.
Bruno?
So when reading your table, it sounded like they kind of passed all of the conditions for special use permit approval. So I was surprised when we got to the denied, unlike the case that's coming on farther down.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just kind of clarify that a little bit? How?
So I take into consideration the standards that are outlined in our zoning ordinance, which is that table. And then additionally, I take in the scope of what the planning commission has evaluated in the past for fence special use permits. So none of these were an outright violation or hard no. But there were concerns, which is why I outlined them in the comments, but also gave the option for approval with conditions.
Any other questions for Madison? Okay, if the owner could now come forward and give us your thoughts on this.
Name and address.
Plug in?
Yes.
All right, let's get you HDMI.
Please give us your name and address.
All right, so you can plug in just right here and it should pop right up.
My name is Alexandra Livingstone, representing Bonnie Miller. The address of the application is 7140 Oak Brook Street Southeast. Just need to sign in. Hold on. Please wait. Thank you for your patience. So thank you, Madison. That was a very thorough and a detailed account of the application. I wanted to just add a couple of, consider some design considerations, and just so the board has some background on how we came to a fence that's not in compliance with zoning. My client, as Madison mentioned, is concerned about the neighborhood children. There's, I think, 27 current children around the age of 5 to 10 in the neighborhood. She says they're very active. And as this is the end of a cul-de-sac, they like to ride their bikes and their scooters and everything. And then they go into her turnaround area in her driveway, which is just above her retention pond. In order to turn around and then, zoom back out and, continue with her time. She has concerns. She's elderly. That's something that will happen. And as Madison also mentioned, the house isn't visible from the street and vice versa. So if the children are playing up at the top of her property, she doesn't have good sight lines to that. So this all came about, out of, a deep concern for something happening. And just knowing that the neighborhood has gotten more active lately. And so she decided she wanted a fence and a gate. This also provides her a little bit more security when she's at her lake house, which is through most of the summer. And it also helps with, she has home health aides that come in and out. And it sort of helps her be able to navigate through traffic. And if there are people who need to access the property, it's easy for her to do that with control of the gate. So she approached Rockford Construction, who she had a prior relationship with, and asked for us to look into doing a gate and a fence. And through a bunch of back and forth, I think we've almost been at this for about a year. We came up with this design concept that you see here. And I know I only have 5 minutes, so I will continue. I'll try to move on, but the Blodgett Estate, or the Brook By House, otherwise known as, the gate there was her original concept, and she really wanted to bring something, beautiful. She didn't just want to, put up a compound wall or anything. This isn't exclusionary by any means. We looked at masonry to have that more organic feature. She wanted to have some reference to the more natural aspects of her property. She likes a lot of the native flowers. She loves all of her trees. She has made it very clear to me that we are not allowed to move any trees out of her property in order to install this gate. So masonry ended up not really working out, but we wanted to keep some of that curvature and some of that aesthetic, and a little bit of that art deco feel that she really liked from the Blodgett Estate. Oops, sorry, I flipped too far ahead. So in consideration for Madison's comments, I just wanted to also show what a 6-foot gate would look like. I am, still showing some of those architectural features, as it was also my understanding of the zoning ordinance that we could have features up to 1.5 times the size of the allotted fence. I mean, I think that that's something we can be flexible around if that is something the board wants to eliminate from consideration, but I just wanted to show kind of as context. I don't think that a 6-foot to an 8-foot gate is, that much of an aesthetic, difference from, I'll show the comparison on the next page. That the impact of the 8-foot gate is really just at the gate. And then those gentle swooping lines down to the 6-foot fence. Again, it's an intentional, well thought out design decision that we are trying to make. This also references another gate that I believe Madison put in the application that is, I believe, 2 or 3 houses down the street that also has a nice curving feature to it. So we wanted to be in conversation with that gate, and again, just having a little bit more of an organic feel. So I have some additional graphics if you need to see anything that Madison presented previously. This is the corner of the turnaround inside the property, looking to the retention pond, and then the entrance, which is over on the right-hand side.
Any questions for Alexander? Chris?
Good Chair, a few questions. I'll come back to my shed question because you may not be able to answer it.
Yes, sorry, that's not in my scope. I didn't realize the shed was not in compliance.
So the applicant is not here?
No, she's elderly and has a hard time traveling, so she decided not to come, unfortunately,
Unless
tonight.
she's going to her lake house, right?
She is currently at her lake house,
Okay,
yes.
just checking. So you showed a 6-foot fence. Did you look at a 4-foot fence so you would in fact be in compliance?
We
You wouldn't
looked-
have to be here if you did that.
Correct, I understand. And we believed, and this is based on my own personal experience, which might be slightly skewed, but as a child, I would have no issue getting over a 4-foot fence or a 4-foot gate. So if one was ambitious enough, we just didn't feel like that was enough of a deterrent.
Okay,
So you're saying a 4-foot gate wouldn't stop a kid, but a 6-foot gate would stop a kid? If the kid was so inclined to climb a gate, a 4-foot gate wouldn't stop them, but a 6-foot gate would stop them.
perhaps criminal in nature?
I just want to understand that, because I mean, when I was a kid, it didn't matter, it was a 20-foot fence. If I'm gonna climb it, I'm gonna climb it.
Yes, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on any children in the neighborhood by any means. But I really just, I think that we know that the 6-foot was what was allowed by, I believe, both building code and zoning code. And so that was where I think we were like, okay, we would like the 6 feet because it does feel like an additional.
Can you show me where we allow a 6-foot fence in a front yard?
No, I understand it's not front yard, but in the side yards.
Okay,
So then wanting to continue that line throughout to the front yard so that aesthetically we didn't have this big drop at the front yard. And I believe based on how the front yard is is calculated because this is a through lot. There's actually a large portion of the property line that is considered front yard. So we would have a staggered fence and it would be, I would say visually a little bit awkward. So that's why we're asking for the 6 foot, as we feel like there is an additional deterrent in that. And oh, sorry, I can switch, or here, I can switch to the
It's gonna show
the site map.
the yard of where the line would be
Yeah.
for-
there.
Okay. Just so they know what the
Yep.
front yard part is.
So you said that the concern was that the kids were riding their bike down around and turning around in the turnaround and going back. So wouldn't it just make sense to just put a fence across the driveway and be done with it? 2 pillars on either side, put a fence across the driveway, the kids can't turn around there. Problem solved.
Maybe a sign.
I mean,
My client really would like a fence on the boundaries of her property that's accessible. She is really concerned about children accessing through her driveway, through the side of her yards. And also too, just, people wandering, she doesn't have good sight lines from the house to the sides of her property. And, as she's elderly, security is a concern of hers.
Any other questions for Alexandra?
I have
Member
one, but
Bruno?
I'm actually not sure if it's for you or for staff. But the ordinance talks about an unusual land, and you've pointed out that it's a through lot.
Correct.
It's an odd shape. The house has no walls parallel nor perpendicular to any of the property lines. And with the elevations, that house is positioned almost the only place it could possibly positioned. So is this something prime for I guess it's a special use permit, but if we deny it, then is it a zoning, is it a ZBA? Like, could she, like the chicken or the egg, which should come first? Like, could she, due to the uniqueness and the fact it's not self-inflicted and it is a issue with the land?
That's not how it was reviewed, so.
Okay,
It's.
but
it
what
wouldn't-
happens
it
if we,
Wouldn't be eligible for a variance. Because that's for dimensional, that's not how the ordinance states that an increased fence height could be reviewed.
if we deny her, could she then, or like what happens if we deny it, it's dead?
If you
Or
deny it,
maintenance.
she could build in compliance,
Okay,
or she could appeal within 30 days of the planning commission's decision.
That would go to the ZBA.
that would go to the ZBA. And could she argue, and it's back to the standard ZBA rules, or is a fence because we authorize it through a special use permit handled differently?
An appeal has its own set of standards.
An appeal is an appeal regardless of whether it's a special use permit.
Say that again?
Is it our threshold in standards, or is it the ZBA's threshold and standard? Should it be appealed? I would suspect it would be the ZBA's.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, member Bruno, but
No,
I knew what you were saying.
Thank you for
Yes.
my inability. to
No, I
deliberate.
speak you. You're good.
Member Richardson?
Oh, can I just ask a quick question for my own clarification? So it sounds like the neighborhood children, some of them are maybe not understanding that the beginning portion of the driveway here is not just part of the public street because of the angle of it and the shape of it. So they really are using it quite a bit.
Correct. Cars do as well. So my client has a lot of cars that turn around in her internal to her property turnaround.
Member Reese?
Just a general question.
Thank you.
Would you say it was easy, difficult, challenging to find our fence ordinance and the specifics you needed to come in front of us? I'm curious if you were able to find the answers you needed on our website relatively easily, or if if you had to reach out to staff and whatnot to do that.
I did reach out to Madison directly. One of the questions I had that I could not find in the ordinance was whether or not we were allowed to be right on the property line. I'm aware that in other townships, sometimes they request that fences be inset by 1 foot. So that started my journey. And then as we uncovered information, I was then made aware that as a through lot, we had sort of non-conforming considerations of what would be, front yard to the zoning, which then.
Okay.
Yeah, can
Put
I
us
just
here.
clarify one thing?
Yeah.
The through lot just means that the property has 2 front yards,
Right.
but the application for the fence this evening is in the front yard, not what would typically be considered the rear yard for a through lot, if that clarifies. The through lot doesn't change that her fence application is for the front yard.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Trustee Nordic?
I find that children are really pretty trainable if you give them a guideline, which would be a 4-foot high fence. They would know not to cross that fence. It doesn't take long to teach a child that. We have rules in place. I just don't want to see 20,000 more residents coming in here saying children are out of line. I need an exception. So I'm really not in favor of changing our actual rules for front yard fencing. I think children can be trained.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions for Alexandra?
No.
Okay, I'd
Make a
entertain
motion to go to public hearing.
I support.
Motion made and supported to go to public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Thank
Any
you.
opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes
We
7.
have somebody who wants to come up quickly. I see him. Come on up.
He's jumping.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
come on up. This is your chance.
Speak your piece. Tell us your name and address.
My name is Christopher Spain. My address is 7130 Oak Brook Street. I live next door to Miss Miller and her caretaker who lives there with her, Mary. I'm not sure what Mary's last name is. Never been to one of these things. I'm not here to start a fight with Bonnie or anybody, but
Feel welcome.
We're glad you came.
Yeah. Either are we, but it
It's really boring when nobody's
it's
here.
actually kind of exciting to see the whole civil process work.
Meetings go so quick,
This all just sort of feels like it's going a bit too fast in terms of the neighbors just learned about this, I think a couple weeks ago. I'll be honest, I don't think in your letter it talked about the kids. The kids thing I think I saw in the packet today. I've lived there for almost 4 years. I have 2 kids. They've never said a word about my kids going in their yard. Frankly, my kids don't really go in their yard. Whatever picture was up there shows you that they have to actually cross my property to even get in their driveway. So when our kids run or go in the circle there, they're on my property and my neighbor's property. To the extent that they have spilled into her thing, I think a 4-foot gate or a 6-foot gate would be fine. Not necessarily opposed to a fence. It just feels like this is kind of being shoved down our throats. And I've talked to other neighbors. I think 1 or 2 other ones submitted emails in addition to myself about the concerns here. So I think the kids thing, and there's 4 kids on the street, not 27. I don't know where that number, unless I got kids I don't know about that are living there. I'm not sure. Bonnie's lived there for a long time, as I understand it. Kids have lived in this neighborhood forever, as I understand it, and this is the first we're hearing about a fence and safety issues. I don't know why that is what is driving this. And again, if safety is what she's concerned about, my kids aren't that trainable, but most are. So I think if it was a compliant fence, I think it'd be fine. I also liked whoever's idea about just having the fence posts. They showed the Blodgett estate. If I understand correctly, I'm not from here. I moved here. That's in East Grand Rapids, which is a city street. We live out in the country. This kind of looks like, it almost makes it look like a prison with like these 6, 8-foot walls. It's nature. There's a lot of animals roaming around. My wife wanted me to say that. Also, if you look, the 3 houses at the end of this cul-de-sac, mine included, are all actually really cool looking mid-century modern houses. We actually just renovated ours. And it used to be Bonnie's house used to be this beautiful house. And then I don't know what happened. They came in, they painted it blue, like similar to your shirt, which is a great color for a shirt, but
Looks good on you, Scott.
for a mid-century modern house, it doesn't make a ton of sense. And then they painted part of the pink, the entryway. This fence doesn't match either, thing architecturally, element wise. It's kind of like a, Victorian kind of estate type fence. It doesn't, we don't love it. I know some of the other neighbors don't love it. They couldn't be here tonight, but I do think they submitted emails for your consideration. Happy to answer any questions, but I do think I'm limited to 5 minutes, so.
Bruno?
So just, you're 7130 Oak Brook, is that right?
Yes. By the way, I am the one that actually asked about access to my lot, because again, we moved in, I think 3-4 years ago, very friendly neighborhood, all the neighbors get along. People, access each other's lot or their lots through other parts of people's lots. And like I said, Bonnie's got to drive across my lot just to get into her. Never really had a problem with it. It is a lot easier for us to get to the backyard if we're able to go down that side yard there. I mean, she mentioned not wanting to take down trees. If she puts in this fence, we're gonna have to take down like 12 trees because we're gonna have to get a service road, like some sort of access to our backyard because we still have more work we want to do back there. So I think if she's in favor of trees, then I don't think she needs the fence. I will tell my kids not to go in her yard. Again, they don't really want to go over there. There's constantly people over there. I will say the one thing, I like the idea of a gate, not to keep the fence out, but to keep the caretakers from speeding up and down because the kids are at the age now where they're riding their bikes on the road and the caretakers zip in and out. So the idea of the two, fence posts with a gate, I get it. She's elderly. She may want some control over who enters and who doesn't. But I don't know if we need this sort of 8-foot tall fence.
Alan?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, to the best of your knowledge, has any kid been injured on her property since you've been there 4 years?
Since, to my knowledge, no. My kids certainly haven't. There's one other person across the street, Emily
Yeah,
Underwood.
I talked to her. I
Okay.
went down and she said her kids don't go on the property either, but with the turnaround, I don't know. I mean, I get that, right? The kids with bikes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
my kids are getting to that age where they're riding bikes. Emily's kids are getting to that age where they're riding bikes.
Get that.
I can't tell you as I sit here if my kids have ever coasted in on her property. They may have, but again, I think, a 2 fence post with a opening gate stops all that and
Member Bruno?
try to train them.
So I drove there right before I came here and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. But parts that I also kind of disagree with that. The circle drive at 7135 almost kind of appears like it's the turnaround for the entire street. But I paused because I remember seeing these engineering drawings and no, that's their private, they have a circular drive.
Mhm.
So you kind of I almost ended up in her turnaround thinking it was the turnaround for the street. So I did kind of
Now, see, I didn't, but
wander past into that turnaround because I wasn't sure where I'm supposed to turn around. So I kind of agree with your idea of the gate would probably stop that. Because it's not really clear, it dead ends really, there's no cul-de-sac per se. That circle drive, I believe, is
yeah.
7135's private driveway, is that correct?
It's a
Correct.
private drive. I
Yeah.
think, whenever they paved that, it was long before I moved in. I don't know if there was any consideration as to what
Did it-
went where and who needed access to who. Again, I think everybody just got along and it was like, this looks good. I get what you're saying. It is the end. It's the cul-de-sac.
A little confusing.
The garbage trucks use it to turn around. We have a big like horseshoe in front, like people turn around in our driveway all the time.
Okay,
And then Emily has a little bit of a turnaround in hers as well. But again, if it's cars that she's worried about turning around, I think a gate suffices. And so, yeah.
and then my last question, 7135 also seems to have an 8-foot fence in their front yard, apparently protecting like an orchard. Has that ever,
I have
has
no
that been there
idea.
as long as you've been there? Do we know anything about the history of that? And
I believe we haven't been there that long. And with COVID, time has kind of flown by. So I don't know if it's been 3 or 4 years, but I do believe it's been there the whole time.
it just caught my eye. It
Okay,
seems.
we need to move on and give
Yeah.
a chance to some other folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you.
Anybody else in
Do I
the
have to stay,
audience?
or can I?
No, you.
Okay.
Whatever you
Thank you.
say, yeah.
Anybody else in the audience or anybody online?
I'd make a motion that we go out of public hearing.
Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
Point of order,
passes
Chair.
7-0.
Ask a couple things. First off, can you do us a favor, since we're having problems identifying who's who? Supported by Nordike, second by, and could we say who the support and the second were?
Member Rissy supported.
Oh, thank you.
I didn't
We-
realize you weren't recording.
Well, we are, but sometimes it's hard on camera to see who said what. So if we can just make a point of that.
Yeah, that's my job. I need to do that.
Thank you, Chair.
in the future.
Just
I will correct my
summarize.
evil ways.
You can just summarize after the motion and second are made.
Okay. All right, any further discussion?
Yeah, so I kind of have a thought. I mean, I would think either we conform to, I beat you to the punch before you made it.
I was ready.
I know you were. I think we either conform to the rules, which is 4 foot in front, 6 on the side, or if you want a 6-foot fence, fine, put it across the driveway, but only the driveway.
Chris,
I'd like to make a motion that we do not support or decline this application based on staff recommendations.
Support.
okay, motion by Chris, supported by member or trustee Nordic.
Discussion.
Discussion?
I respect what Mr. Rowland said, and gives me great pause is we were here, I think, on May 20th with a deer fence in the front yard, and it kind of went through with flying colors. I was in the dissenter, and I really wanted to stick with the ordinance. We have an ordinance, whether we like it or not, to stick with it. On this one here, it's kind of like she's trying to protect children, which, that's her claim. I'm not saying it's valid or not. But my question is, if it had been deer, would we be treating it differently? And if we are, that gives me pause, because it's kind of like we allowed an 8-foot fence in the front yard to protect a crop that didn't exist yet. It was something that hadn't been planted yet.
Mhm.
And I drove out there and I did drive past the threshold, I think, of her drive, trying to turn around. It was by mistake.
Yeah.
But if I had continued, I'd been right in her.
I did the same.
Okay, so I'm not the only idiot on the panel.
But a 4-foot fence probably would have stopped you.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
I would agree with that. But my question is, a 4-foot fence would have stopped me. But we've started precedent, and if we're gonna backtrack on that, let's be consistent.
I think we are being consistent.
Okay.
I think the difference here is that fence you're referring to
It was
was
200
on,
feet
was 200 feet from the
off the
road.
road.
And it was an arterial road. This is in a residential neighborhood. There's a significant difference. If that fence had been on Oak Brook versus Cascade Road, I think that, or Throne River Drive or wherever, I think it would have been handled completely different, because we don't typically approve fences in neighborhoods like this over 4 foot, that I'm aware.
Yeah, but his point was it's gonna look like a penitentiary, so you want our major arterial road.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, we are going so far off the motion.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Let's get back to the motion that's been supported.
I'm not looking to amend it, if anybody's asking.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Motion passes 6-1. All voted in favor
No.
except member Bruno.
Yes.
Okay,
In favor of denying it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it.
Believe that
Right.
brings us to Article 8.
moving on, Article 8. Case number 243835. Applicant Andrew Somsel, Michelle Furley. Madison,
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, they did last year. Oh, they should know how to do it.
Okay, we have another application this evening for an increased fence height. This is for Andrew Somsel, I believe I'm saying that correctly, and Michelle Furlet. They are at 2549 Linda Avenue. This is also in our R2 residential district. If you're familiar, they are east of Kraft, south of Burton, in the residential neighborhood there. Their parcel is just under an acre, approximately 0.9. They are requesting to build an 8-foot privacy fence in their front yard. To reference our ordinance, they are permitted up to 4 feet in the front yard, and then 6 feet is permitted in the side and rear yards. Per the submitted site plan, the fence will run along that eastern side of their property. They'll have it set back 40 feet from the road's edge, and they've indicated 2 feet from their eastern property line, and then running for about 175 feet down that side. The fence's setback is in line with the clear vision standards, so they are not, gonna block vision for the neighboring driveway, in accordance with our standards. But when we look at the standards for review for our type 1 special use permit, as we went through in our initial previous application, we looked at to what extent the impact of additional height would have on adjoining neighbors. It would be excessive when considering the reasons proposed. Visually, the fence would create a change. It's solid wood. So when we look at the light and ventilation flowing through it, it would be kind of a big barrier between the properties. The plans indicate that the fence posts are facing the neighbor's property as well, so it would just be noted that the structural supports of the fence are supposed to face the property who built the fence.
Correct.
The applicant has also indicated that this area is shaded and dark already, so it was noted that it could impact the light and ventilation further. If it creates an increased traffic hazard is another consideration we look at. As I mentioned, it's not proposed to be within the right of way, so it wouldn't be creating a traffic hazard in that sense. But it would run along the neighbor's driveway. The increased height, whether that would create a fire or safety hazard, I don't believe it would create one, other than that it's a wood fence, which obviously is a flammable material.
Combustible.
Yes. Sorry. And then the final one is whether the increased height violates any known property restrictions. Didn't submit any to me, and I didn't find any that would restrict them from having a fence. But again, when we look at these increase in fence applications, we take into consideration other factors such as what we have approved in the past. And again, I've provided you with your previous approvals for an increased fence height in the front yard. And typically it is for a arterial road with a high speed, looking for safety, a corner lot, protection from deer that could jump over a 6-foot fence, or sometimes on a through lot. So after evaluating the plan, it was determined that it was recommended that the increased fence height would be denied and that they could build in compliance. Any questions?
Madison?
Yeah, so, and I'm confused, because I'm looking at page 42 in the packet. And it looks to me like the fence runs along the side of the house, not in front of the house. But are you saying it's in front of the house because the fence protrudes past the front plane of the house?
Yeah, so the
Okay.
way that we measure a front yard is from the front line of the home to the road right of way is considered the front yard, which is similar reason why that previous application last meeting came, because their front yard, even though it was 200 feet back, it was still in front of that home's front line, so it's considered the front yard.
So by our bylaw, by our rules, that can only be 4 foot high then,
Correct. Up to the home.
up to the home, no, past the home. Up
It
to-
can only be 4 feet up to the home, and then once you reach the house, it can be 6 feet. Does that make
Rinse,
sense?
read that back, right? Like, yeah, as soon as you hit the plane of the house, going backwards, it's 6 feet. Okay,
Yes.
all right.
One thing I noticed when I went out there today is there is a driveway that goes back to a house that is actually behind these two.
Mhm.
It's the 2562 Linda Avenue. And it's, I don't know, is that a separate right of way?
It's an
Drive.
easement on the neighbor's property to go through to get to their house. Yep.
Okay.
They did submit comment that they did not have an issue with it. They didn't verify if they wanted it on the record, but they did send me an email.
Okay, and you noted that.
Yes.
Okay. Other questions for Madison?
Which house sent you an email saying they didn't object?
I think the applicant confirm it's 2562. Yeah, 2562. So behind them. Like southeast of them. Yeah, you have a map with you?
Yeah.
The one that recently did an addition, not the one that has the accessory building.
So this house in blue.
Correct, yeah, that's.
Other questions for Madison? Okay. Would the owner representative like to come up and present their case? Give us your name and address.
Yep, I'm Drew Somsel and this is Michelle Furlet, 2549 Linda Avenue. We are looking to install a fence along our property line to regain some privacy that we lost in the last year through the course of 2 different projects. I've been a Cascade resident my whole life and I love living here and really like this property. I chose to buy this property 10 years ago when it came on the market because of the lot size and the amount of wooded area it had and how it was separated from all other structures and homes. And they weren't on top of one another. And in the past year, we lost some of that privacy and that feeling of seclusion following the construction of a garage directly east of our house, which is denoted by the yellow box there. And it was constructed according to the township zoning requirements. But the new structure is much closer to our property now. And it affects the aesthetic that we have to look at every day because it is in front of our house off to the side. So, I mean, tonight we're standing before you to try to regain some of that privacy and that feeling of seclusion, which I'm sure you can appreciate.
Add something in here too, because you said 2 projects.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
This home as well, recently it's not just this accessory building, it's this home that.
I'll
made
talk
an
a little bit
addition.
about that in a second.
Almost, I don't know if it quite doubled. It extended
No,
the
it didn't.
square footage of their house by a considerable amount, so their house extends closer to our property line now, so. Their renovation, a lot of their windows look directly into, or look into like what would be our bedroom window. And this building also, I mean, like that's what we look out at from our bedroom and then our guest bedroom, so it's been both projects. Not
Yes,
just
not this one.
Um,
So, and I will touch base on, come back to that in a little bit. But so why did we decide doing a fence? I'm an ISA certified arborist and I love trees. And I own a tree spade transplanting company. And so of course it would make a lot more sense for me to smack some
That's what I was thinking.
20 foot Norway spruce in and fill it in with, some green giant arbs. But after thinking about that for a period of time, that wasn't going to be an effective option later on down the road because of the dense shade that the property has. When we submitted the pictures, obviously it was springtime and the leaves were all off the trees. But here is, and we do have some pretty heavy shade. And Norway spruce are not exactly the most shade tolerant species. Neither are green giants. And those would be the only quote unquote deer resistant options. So over time, they would probably thin out and that would kind of completely it wouldn't give us the blockage essentially. So yeah, because of the heavy shade in the trees, like I can't even grow tall fescue or perennial ryegrass in that lawn area over there. I've tried multiple times. But let's see. And as much as we like to feed our local deer population from our garden, adding a salad bar would not be the wisest choice, given that the deer would browse up to 5 foot line, which we're trying to block. Let's Let's see, we also do have walnuts, walnut trees in the area, which I don't know if any of you are familiar with how walnuts interact with new trees that are trying to establish. We can get into the weeds with it, but it produces a chemical called juglans, which makes it really difficult for other species to thrive. And if you want to, talk about that later afterwards, love to geek out. All that being said, we settled on a fence. We came to the township and talked with, I believe, Madison that day with what the requirements were for our property. And she had said that, anything in the front plane of our house. So the house corner is right here. And so anything from here forward would have to be 4 foot without receiving a special use permit. So, and then we could request up to 10 foot. We spent a lot of time playing around with the different fence heights. I cut different sheets of plywood to hold them up to try and gauge what an appropriate height would be to get an adequate level of blocking. One of the issues that we have is we are lower in grade than our neighbor.
About 2 feet roughly.
18 inches to 2 feet, where
Yeah.
I didn't have a transit with me, but using the micrometer, that's about where we're at. And so we came up with 8 foot because that would, from our vantage point, it would block just below the eave of the structure of the garage in the front. Also 8 foot, that would only be in this lawn area. So from, here, I'll do it this way. So the fence is set here, and then it would run back to here, and then I have a little bit of elevation change here, which it could go down to closer to 6 foot, where we wouldn't need quite as much height. Michelle really wanted to do the 10-foot fence. It took a little bit of convincing, and we don't want it to look obnoxious, but we do want it to still fulfill, the goal of gaining some of that seclusion and privacy back. As far as our proposed material, we're looking to do, you want to look for.
It's not gonna be solid. This is our inspiration for that, so it's kind of flat.
So it'd be a horizontal slatted fence, so there would be some, but I mean, it'd be minimal. But yeah, so proposed material would be treated wood that is cedar tone. We'd obviously keep up with staining that. The stain color would probably change a little bit because we want it to try and blend in as best we can into the surrounding wooded area. We didn't want to do like a white plastic vinyl fence and have it stick out like a sore thumb. But like what Madison had said, we did speak to our neighbors back here. And let's see. We spoke with them in late March just to kind of get their feedback because it would impact them the most, given that their driveway is right there. So we did speak with them and try to be, courteous, and because it does butt up to their driveway. And both Brianna and Nate said they had no objection. They actually said we might want to build our trash enclosure off the end of it. Which we don't have an issue with. But they recently just went and took their house down to studs and added 600 square foot addition. And like what Michelle said earlier, their living room has a direct view to our deck and our primary bed and bathroom, which is in this corner. And their living room is right kind of in the center of the new area. Let's see. And then the fence location, we really are trying to be respectful of our neighbors. Keeping it 40 feet back from the road, so it isn't, visually a sore spot, and then it shouldn't impact any traffic to our neighbors at 2562 with any accessibility. And it shouldn't impede any sight lines or anything like what Madison said. And also it wouldn't cause any issues for piling snow in the winter. Something that most people don't think about. And I can't imagine it would obstruct any emergency vehicle access. With regards to Madison's comment about light and blockage of light, the trees are doing that well enough. There's going to be a very minimal light disturbance, I would imagine. But yeah, so any questions?
Any members have
Or
questions?
sorry, Michelle, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
I don't know if. No, I'm good right now.
Okay.
Member Bruno?
Yes.
Will you be removing trees to put the fence in?
No, that's the goal, to not remove trees. So there are a couple spots where we'd have to do, have like gaps in the fence, so that we would not have to remove trees.
And then your picture, it looked like it was a slat style fence. So the concern over the post not being on the proper side, the posts are shared, right? It's a
So,
post that has a
We
slat.
don't have construction or Rockford Construction consulting money to do this. So this was just a landscape app that I use occasionally that just so happened to have fence panels that you can kind of play around with. And if you can see from my very crude rendering that I had to do each individual fence panel one by one. So, I mean, that is something, we don't have an issue with having the fence posts on our side. That doesn't really make a big deal to us. And like I said, I mean, as far as height goes, we're really just trying to get just blocking the 8-foot section would mainly be from this area, right where it would start back to about here where we do have a grade change.
Why so far forward?
So
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, I can see going to the edge of their garage, starting the fence there. I can see that,
Yeah,
but you guys are going like, I don't know,
so they,
30, 40 feet more.
no, that's a good point. When you sit, and this is obviously us right here, we have a front
Porch.
little stoop area.
Yeah.
When you look out at that, you see all of this. This is something I was hesitant to bring up, but I will, because I'm not trying to start feuds, and I know our neighbors here. Since the construction of this accessory building, there's been
a lot of vehicles parking in front of it,
a lot of,
and
like,
it's,
a decrease of disruption to our aesthetic.
Sure.
There's a commercial work vehicle that you can even see in the picture here that is parked just in the middle of the lawn
Okay.
daily, and that's where it is all the time.
Okay.
And then on the side of the garage and behind the garage, if you want, I can bring my phone up and show pictures of this.
I think
There's just,
The trailer.
there's
No,
trailer,
sure.
but there's also building materials, this is what we see from our front porch, from our bedroom, from our second bedroom, all
Okay.
along the side of the house. This is what we see with building materials here. This truck that has been there for 9 months now hasn't moved. And then if you were to really zoom in like right here, there's big pieces, because this person owns a glass company, there are big pieces of glass.
it was
just
like
leave at
the
back of
commercial
house.
glass.
Ladders and debris and things like that.
Sure.
And that, we put a new deck on our house last year, and so when you go behind our house, obviously, this is actually still our view. So we put on this new deck, and now our view is of this abandoned truck and these building materials and this trailer and this commercial work vehicle, and it's
And
honestly, it's ruining the aesthetic, and we keep the blinds of our house closed on that side.
And
for privacy too.
Madison has told us, like, they are able to park, any vehicle, anywhere on the property.
Sure.
There is nothing in the township zoning ordinance, and correct me if I'm wrong, where you can park your vehicle wherever.
The trailer.
even if it is, like too fat to be fine. That there is nothing against that. And because that is a garage and vehicles are, in and out of there. That is why we'd like to go
Yeah.
that far forward.
Privacy and-
Member Nordhook?
and aesthetic.
I'm just curious how long that garage has been there.
It's been there since.
Well, it was the subject of
We were here.
October's meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, how did it wind up in the front yard? I mean, I realize it's a neighbor's garage, but how did it wind up in
It-
their front yard?
Technically,
The special use permit. got
832 square feet, so they don't need a.
So their application was either, I think you guys tabled it. And then they ended up just building in compliance with the standards of zoning, so it's not in the neighbor's front yard. It's in what's considered their side yard and it's built in compliance with the square footage.
because once again, it's based off the front plane of their residence.
But when you're in our front yard, all of this.
Is in our front yard.
That's what
front
I'm
yard
getting at.
view And our side yard view and backyard view.
Is your house sits back quite a bit further
Correct.
than your neighbor's?
And that's
Correct.
why we're asking for the special use for it to be taller than the 4 feet in the front and the 6 feet along the side, because they're also at about a 2 foot difference than we are, so it needs to be that tall.
Because
to
we already
provide-
have the low ground.
Yeah,
So when building an accessory building, it needs to be not in your front yard?
It's not in your front yard, but it happens to be in
Right,
their line.
but
of view.
can it be in your front, because it is in their front?
No,
Well,
not in their front yard, but their
uh,
view.
This is- Oh, this is.
Mr.
front
Chair,
house Here.
We're not,
okay.
we're not here to discuss the accessory building though.
Well, no, we're not, but it's something
Right.
we need to change that.
Maybe, but not during this case.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I can't, I'm going back and forth between pictures.
So I would make a motion to go to the public hearing at this time if nobody else has any other questions.
Do we have support?
Support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moved and supported, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Thank you.
opposed? Motion passes.
Who made that motion?
7-0. Member
mean,
Reese.
Who
And I
supported it?
think member
I
Richardson.
didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
supported.
Thank you.
Well,
Okay, we are now open for public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to come forward? Give us your name and address, please.
My name is Kathy Summers, 2520 Linda. I'm just one house down from the top of the hill on Linda. I have three, I'm very much in favor of Drew and Michelle getting their 8-foot fence, and for three reasons. One is on this photo I took of their house in relation to the garage next door. There's quite our street goes uphill very drastically. Then it turns left and goes around the corner and it's a dead end. But there continues to be a rise as you make that left.
To the
turn,
east.
which is where these two houses are. Then if you put the card down with the line between the roof line of Drew and Michelle's house over to where the garage is, you can see it.
Going
It
up.
lines up with the bottom of the window of the garage. I'm guessing, I don't know what the elevation change is, but I'm guessing there's probably at least a good 3 feet. And so an 8-foot fence would give them some privacy. On that side, I also was looking in the zoning chapters, 167 pages. But on chapter 17.03.7, one of the concerns is putting something in the front yard of property, which this garage had been done, if it would adversely affect the neighbors. Well, you put it in reverse and that garage is in the front yard view of where Drew and Michelle's front yard is. So when they're in their front yard, what they see is a garage that was approved to be put in the front yard of the house next door. And it's a fine garage, but it does not really line up with what the zoning says. And if you look at the county property search website, this is our Burton is down here. And all these streets, all the front houses line up in line. Nobody is forward from where they should be from the street. And so no one has someone else's view of something in their front yard that should not belong there. So this would be the property in question that wants the fence, and this is the property that has the garage sitting about there. So that would be out of line with the rest of the street that has everything in line with being set back from the road. So that was a concern for me. The second concern that I have, and I don't even know if Drew and Michelle have thought about that, is this end of their house was what I would consider the privacy end of their house, where there would be bedrooms. There's not social people coming into your living room or your family room or your kitchen. And the garage is here and that's fine, but there's sometimes a lot of activity going around a garage. And if you're in the privacy end of your house, you might feel more secure if you have a fence line along there. Not that anybody would purposely look or anything, but you feel somewhat less secure if there's action going around when you're at the privacy end of your house, whether it be a bedroom or an office or a workout room or whatever. But that makes me think that a fence line along there would make them feel somewhat secure. And and the elevation change and blocking the view from next door from the front yard and the visibility issues are the three reasons that I really think they should be allowed to have the fence. And Drew and Michelle are fantastic people and wonderful neighbors, and I would like to have them get what they request.
Any questions for Kathy?
No, thank you.
Anybody else in the audience or anybody online that would like to comment? Please come forward. Name and address.
Yeah, my name is Daniel Vermeersch and I reside at 2545 Linda Avenue. My front yard in front of the house faces directly east. So sorry, I do not have a cool printer, but this is what I get to look at every morning while the sun comes up. And so I am in support of the higher 8-foot fence. With the previous tenants, they had children. My children would go over there and play. So before all of that was there, and I know we're not talking about the outbuilding by any means, but you know, it was great to see them, you know, run down the hill and everything like that. Now, every morning I get to look at a work truck, which again is rightfully, that's his profession, but we see that green truck that's been there for gosh knows how long, and the trailer that still resides there. So in Drew and Michelle and Kathy's comments, having that larger fence along with the grade would help my view in looking at that. And along with safety issues when it came to, you know, sight lines and snow ordinances of the plow and everything that comes down, you know, Drew and Michelle have planned it accordingly where it's far enough away from the road that it's not going to cause any issues there. And then, yeah, just really having frequent, you know, they're great neighbors. My wife and I love them. We go over there many a times during the summer and fall. And as they propose sitting in their brand new backyard on their deck that they, you know, spent their wonderful money on, we get to see the lovely view of the green
Right.
truck, the garage, and whatever else material they have
Trailer.
sitting there. Yeah. So
Great.
that's all I
Any
have.
questions for Daniel?
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you.
Anybody else in the audience like to come forward? Name and address, please.
My name is David Guthrie. I'm at 2540 Linda Avenue. I don't have any overheads, but I'm on the corner house. I'm right across the street from Drew. I've lived in the neighborhood for 22 years. We've always been a close-knit neighborhood. As you can see, we're all here. I have no objection to the fence, and I hope that you'll give it consideration and that our neighborhood can go forward and be tight-knit as we always have been.
Thank you, David. Anybody online? Yeah, come on up. Name and address.
Tom Howard, 2547 Linda Avenue. I'm the opposite side neighbor to Drew. And we sit in our backyard, we can see the back house. That guy leaves early. his lights are right on the whole back of their house when he's leaving every day. So, I can see where that would be annoying when your bedroom gets lit up every morning at 6 o'clock when the neighbors are leaving. And yeah, the garage, I don't see it so much as these people have more of a view of it. My house sits way back. But I can see where that would bother you to have headlights coming into your room every morning. And not to mention everything else that goes on along with it. But it's an intrusion and I can see that. And it was enough for me. I like my neighbor enough that I came down here and give us my time and let you know that it's not an over ask for what he's asking for.
Any questions for Tom?
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Anybody else? Come on up. Name and address.
Hi, my name is Agustin Murphy, 2568 Linda. I am the bat of the picture. I am the owner of that garage. Like the lady talked about the houses, when you come from Linda, those are very small lots who comes to when you turn to the cul-de-sac of the house of this gentleman, he wants his fence. It's a beautiful lot. His house was built way back. So my lot go like that and his lot go like that. I got nothing against his fence. I support his fence. I am very happy to do it because I want to do the same. I want to do the same, but a little short, to know. And I'm sorry if all my stuff bother you.
We can direct your comments to the planning commission.
Sir, please present to the
I
commission.
should go there to make uncomfortable the people. All the people in here, they're friends. They've been living there forever. I am the new guy right there.
Okay.
Let's call it like that, So I run a little company, so it's a walking truck I park right there, but all the days is gone. I come back 5 o'clock like everybody does. Everybody go work, come back home, and I support his fence. It's okay. I'm sorry for the neighbor who is in the back because I'm going to raise my fence too all along in the back. So that little house is going to be in the back, but my fence is going to be 6 feet. I got nothing against his fence, and his fence, that design looks awesome. I hope you could help the gentleman.
Okay, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question for Madison, but I don't know if you want to wait till we
Well,
close.
it's- we're done.
We need
Okay.
Hearing.
anything online? Anybody online? Okay.
I make a
Entertain
motion to exit public hearing.
Support.
Motion by Chris, supported by Scott. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, now we're open for.
All right, so here's my question to Madison. Is it possible, and let's just talk theoretically here, okay? 8-foot fence to the front of the house. Right, so from the front of the house back 8 feet. From the front of the house going forward, build up enough dirt that you can put a 6-foot fence that is now the same height as an 8-foot fence.
What's the question?
Is that within, is that?
Well, that would still be an increased height for the front yard, so it would still require a special use.
Okay.
I think, I think that. I think that the front yard can be done with, so I think there's some opportunity there to do some landscape changes to correct that. I think that you could look at grasses or different trees. I understand your shade concerns. I understand the deer concerns, but I feel that there are some options that you could try to work through for that, because I am concerned about setting a precedent of putting a 6-foot fence in a front yard. Yeah.
So the request is for an 8-foot fence.
I understand,
Just a comment.
but, okay,
He
8-foot
mentioned-
fence in front.
He mentioned a change to the plan this evening, so that's what you're hearing.
Anything over 4 foot concerns
Yes.
me because we're setting a precedent. So, I would want them to exercise some other ideas there in the backyard. They can have 6-foot fence. Do we typically, I mean, have we made any 8-foot fence approvals in a backyard?
Last year, Miss King came forward on Burton. She was approved an 8-foot fence for a down sloping property behind her that stored their RV in their side yard, which was her rear yard. So it was an increase from 6 feet to 8 feet.
Okay, so I'd be willing to do that in the back, I think, but not the front.
Member Bruno?
Could he temporarily put an 8-foot deer fence around his plantings?
They just wrap a little burlap. In the winter, right?
No, I'm not saying you're saying he can put vegetation in there, but he's saying he has a deer problem. So my question is so that it can get a head start, can you put a temporary 8-foot fence around the, like?
I don't think that's necessary. I have ornamental grasses at my house that grow 8 feet tall, where I can't have a fence of 6 feet high, and they're in the shade and they do fine. They grow slower in the shade, but they hold up okay. You can come over and take some if you'd like. I'd be happy to have them dug up because they grow like a weed.
Point of order.
Unless they have an.
Public
additional
hearing's
question,
over.
it's not-
So a berm or like building up that edge of the yard and then putting a 4 or 6 foot fence, that would not be okay?
A 4 wood.
Okay.
The height is measured from grade.
So doing a berm wouldn't,
No, it's-
yeah, because that's not the grade, right? You're measuring, when you're saying measure from grade, you're measuring from,
The ground.
right, not the berm. You wouldn't be measuring from the berm. You would be measuring from the original.
I think you'd be measuring from the berm.
You'd
You
measure
measure from the berm. So if
from
you put it,
grade.
if you put a 3-foot berm in there and then put a 4-foot fence on it to achieve 7 feet.
We would measure from grade what the fence height would be.
I suspect you may lose some trees in the process.
But that's the problem.
I'm trying to come up with a solution, right?
Because if he puts 4 foot of dirt there, they're all gonna die. So we
Yeah.
kill off the trees to put a fence.
I just like to mention, we put in Norway spruce 7 or 8 years ago. They were like 10 feet high. And we live in the woods. And they've done very well. They're probably 22 to 25 feet high now.
He has lots of shade.
Lots of shade.
So, I mean, nobody wants to set this as a.
They've done very
precedent
well.
Where no one wants a precedent where they're allowing this tall of a fence in someone's front yard. But I think we can all admit that like all of the problems that these residents are dealing with are because of bad decisions that our township made years ago, allowing the angle of the neighbor's house, allowing the neighbor to create a new house in their backyard, allowing the garage to go there, allowing the easement to go right along their property. I mean, we've allowed so many things that have affected them negatively. And they're asking, we, the township.
Like, boy, I like creativity. I'm just gonna throw that out there, but your community sounds pretty cookie cutter there.
What do you mean?
No, I just, when you talk about the angle of the house and the setbacks and things, I think that, what, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make a motion to approve a fence in the rear yard of up to 8 feet, but nothing for the front.
What about the side yard?
I would include the side.
You're not, and you won't do anything in the front. So you're saying from the front plane of the house forward is 4 feet.
Yeah, that's what the law is. That's what I'm saying.
I'd support that motion.
Moved by member Reese, supported by member Nordike. Further discussion?
Yeah, I think that's, I'm not gonna, I'll stay right now. I'm not gonna support that. I think this is what a special use permit is for. And I understand we don't want to set precedent, but this is exactly what special use permit is for. This is a discretionary thing, right? And you've got all the neighbors here saying they want it. I'm not saying I'm all for 8 feet. I'm thinking maybe 6 feet in the front, or maybe we just go to the corner of the garage or something, but sticking to the letter of the law when we make special uses for things like what member Bruno brought up about the fence protecting somebody's trees. I mean, I
Member Reese?
May I ask legal counsel a question? If the planning commission approved a taller fence in the front yard in this case, does that set a precedent that for instance, the former applicant could come forward on?
Certainly a consideration that the planning commission should review when making a decision on these kinds of issues is determining under what circumstances special land use permit has been granted in the past for the exact same type of request. That said, and like was part of the discussion for the last request, the planning commission does need to consider factors associated with that particular request. Including, the circumstances of the property, any specific topographical or locational features that might make that unique. In addition to any other standards that this zoning ordinance requires them to consider for special land uses for this type of situation. But with that said, the planning commission should be consistent in the types of approvals and denials it's giving for these kinds of requests and be clear in its decision if it's going to deviate from a prior grant or denial that would be inconsistent with something that was done in the past, why it feels in this particular instance the deviation is appropriate.
I forgot the question. I'm sorry, I'm just teasing.
Sorry, that was a lot.
I actually
Thank you,
think this is
Leslie.
an
Thank
okay precedent.
Member
Anybody that
Nordhook.
has
Member
a
Nordhook.
Front yard should be able to put a fence to block.
I'm
it.
teasing.
You restate that motion?
My motion was to allow for an 8-foot fence in the rear and side yard. And I didn't make mention of anything in the front, which our ordinance would allow them up to 4 feet in the front, but I think they can try to find some landscape solutions for the front. My concern is that by approving a 6-foot fence in that front yard, we're going to have neighborhoods all over Cascade with giant fences all the way to the road. And
But do you agree that this is an unusual circumstance?
I understand it's
There are-
unusual. There's a lot of unusual circumstances, but
Can we vote on the motion,
That's, you know.
Mr. Chair?
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
I want to call roll on this one.
Yes, roll call.
Who would you like to do
I have
that?
to do the roll call.
Andrea.
We're done. Trustee Nordhook,
No.
Commissioner Richardson.
And this is for what has he proposed here?
yes,
Motion to
Opposed.
approve.
Opposed.
Approve.
support.
Support.
No.
Motion fails.
So 5-3.
Okay, so
Defeated.
here's something I'm just gonna float this for the guys.
4-3.
I'm thinking like an 8-foot fence from the corner of the garage back and going forward 6 foot. What do you think? Or Timmy, what do you think? Or, I mean, I would say 8 foot, definitely 8 foot back from the front of the house. My question is from the front of the house to the far corner of the garage. You think, I'd like to give them 8 feet, but
I really don't think an 8-foot fence belongs anywhere within industrial zoning or manufacturing zoning.
then you want to just do a whole 6-foot fence all the way?
6 foot in the backyard, I could see.
But
I think the front we have to go by code somewhere.
I think you should make a motion, trustee Nordhook.
Yeah.
isn't that what Scott just said?
Oh, Scott's wasn't amended.
I was gonna allow up to
Are we in
8 feet.
discussion?
Scott did 8 foot. I just don't think 8 foot belongs in any residential area.
What? Yes.
All right, I'll make a motion that we allow the 6-foot fence from the in the backyard and the standard 4-foot fence in the front yard.
Point of clarification, that's what's allowed anyway. You might just want to make a motion to deny.
There you go. We already did that.
Is that
No.
6 foot in the setback as
So
well?
you're making a motion to
There's a
deny?
side yard.
I'll make the motion to deny so they can go with the standards that we have set forth.
Can we have support?
Support.
Moved by member Nordhook, supported by member Reese. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Do you want to do a roll call for that?
Do a roll.
Sorry.
Okay,
Might be a good idea.
Let's clarify the vote then.
So the motion on the floor is to deny the request, which would mean that the applicant would be permitted to construct a fence consistent with the code, which would allow for 6 foot in the side and rear yards and a 4 foot in the front yard.
yes.
Correct.
So if you're voting in favor, you are voting consistent with what the code allows. If you're voting to deny, or you're voting no, you would want further discussion on the application to allow a higher fence.
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
member Richardson,
Oppose.
member Bruno,
Oppose.
Chairman Moxley,
Yes.
member Rissy,
Yes.
member Nordike,
Yes.
member Roland.
No.
The motion carries
4 to 3.
4-3.
Sorry, guys.
So the minute a motion is set forth, we end discussion. Like, so we could just race to a motion to end all discussion.
It seems to be the way things are going lately, yes.
We can have debate.
We have had debates after motions are made and supported. We can discuss that.
I just can't believe we didn't
You-
allow
you can
this
make-
or talk about this more.
You can make a motion to reconsider.
Yeah,
It is within Robert's.
be my guest.
Motion to reconsider. We're not
Second.
done talking about this.
What is your motion?
Why are you laughing?
Because you made the comment that we have not been discussing this, but it's 8:36 PM. I feel like we've had quite a bit of discussion. We're only
When
on
did
2
we
cases
start
tonight.
He has a motion on the table.
He
Let's
does.
vote on it.
That's fine.
You're being rude.
I'm sorry. I'm
What
not
is
trying to
the
be
motion?
rude.
Guys,
Richardson,
Wait, what's your motion?
he wants to reconsider the last vote.
So a motion to reconsider would not necessarily reverse the motion. It would just be to engage in further discussion, and then there could be a subsequent motion to either approve or deny the application.
So talk. Need to talk further.
Do we have to have a vote on his motion though? I think before we can have the discussion, right?
I don't think
Okay.
anyone supported.
I did.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay, so
I supported it. I don't know if you guys got that.
thank you.
Okay.
all in favor, is this a roll call vote?
Roll call for that.
Yes. Okay,
Are we gonna call the roll or just?
Andrews.
Nordhook,
No.
Thank you.
member Richardson,
Do I oppose my own motion?
No, you say, yeah, you say. yeah.
I support my motion.
member Bruno,
I support more discussion.
Chairman Moxley,
I support more discussion.
member Rissy,
Yes.
member Nordike,
No,
member Roland.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, member Bruno.
I'm not flipping screens here, I could, but it'll be more efficient. So correct me, so Mrs. King stands out in the realm of discussion. So we approved an 8 foot fence, so she wouldn't have to look at a fifth wheel, I believe. And that was technically in her backyard. But if you juxtapose and you put yourself in the shoes of the owner of what she was blocking, it was actually in their front yard.
Their side yard.
But it went past the front plane of their house, correct? So it would be in their front yard.
The fence was in the backyard.
The backyard of Miss King, the front yard,
Right, the person building the fence was building a fence in their backyard.
Yep, okay. But for every action, there's kind of equal opposite reaction. So it's in her backyard. But I'm addressing trustees' concern that a tall fence should never be in someone's front yard. It is in someone's front yard. It wasn't in the applicant's front yard, but it was in the neighbor's front yard. Is that
No,
correct?
incorrect.
Incorrect? Okay.
So can I ask the applicant a question?
Yeah,
Would you be okay with a 6 foot fence all the way?
I think I would be okay with that.
All right, then I put a motion on the table to get to make this a 6 foot fence from start to finish.
motion on the table,
Support.
supported. Okay, motion. Can we have a roll call vote on this, please?
Repeat the motion.
A motion to have the entire length of the fence be 6 feet.
Member Nordhook,
So it would be to approve this special land use permit with the.
With the exception
that
of
It
the-
would be that it would be a 6-foot fence in the
Correct.
front yard.
Correct.
And-
The entire fence, yeah, because the backyard is, that was already within code at 6 feet.
What, if the neighbors building 6-foot fence, what's the point of them building 6-foot fence?
What do you mean? Say that again. They don't, what do you mean if the neighbor's building a 6-foot fence?
And
He said he's building it in the back though, I think.
right, which if he includes the side would would block everything they want blocked.
I think it gives them an opportunity to control their destiny. When's he gonna build it?
Okay.
Was there
It's a valid
support for
point.
that motion? I just want to make sure okay. So
Yeah.
now we're in the further discussion. I just want to make sure if there's a motion.
As Chris would say, I have a motion on the table and I'd like it addressed.
All right.
Um,
I understand the point of 2 6-foot fences side by side.
Who supported the motion by member Rowland? Member Richardson.
Member
thank you.
Richardson. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, absolutely.
How far would that fence go in front of the applicant's house?
Well, it'd be a 40-foot setback off the road, so I don't know how far their house is from the road. So the fence would start 40 feet off the road, 6 feet, and it would go,
House is 109 feet from the road approximately.
okay, so you're, so 69 feet from in the front of the house, approximately,
So 100% 6-foot fence.
100%. So we're only giving them 60 feet, 60, well, no,
69.
70 feet, let's say, of 2 extra feet. Thanks.
Okay, got a motion on the floor. It's been supported. Can we have a roll call vote?
Nordike,
Nordike or Northwood?
Well, one question, point of clarification.
Nordhook,
Nordhook says
Nordhook.
no.
Wait, stop. Is there going to be further discussion or not? Because we're getting the vote right now.
His
So-
measurement was off, I believe. I just was hoping he could clarify.
You
I
could
measured-
clarify that it's as presented in the site plan.
Yeah. So it says.
What measurement is off?
I just measured from the front corner of their house to the property line. And it is 100.705 feet using Regis. What number did you just say?
I
Those numbers
measured
are
it, I had
not precise.
109.
I'd recommend using the site plan.
member Richardson,
Support.
Bruno,
Support.
Moxley,
Support.
Rissy,
No.
Nordike,
No.
Roland,
Support.
motion passes
5-2.
Got you something.
4-3.
4-3.
Excuse me. 4-3. You or no?
Yes.
So what happens with?
Okay.
So we have a 6-foot fence all the way, 6-foot fence all the way around.
Yeah,
And the neighbors have a 6-foot fence over there.
So for the master plan, I was the one who tabled it, so I think it would be appropriate that I make a motion to remove from table. Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, I'd make a motion for case number 243844 Cascade Township for the 2024 master plan review and recommendation to remove from table.
Support.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any noes? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, so. Who would like to make a motion?
You all don't have to stick around. I mean, you're welcome to stick around, but just so you know, you don't have to if you don't want.
Well, let's see.
So we're looking for comments or in discussions?
Well, I guess we're open.
They're gonna
discussion.
present it.
Oh,
they're present.
oh,
Yeah,
like-
like,
okay.
I think they made
Danielle?
changes. Probably owe it to them to.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't certain if I needed to really say anything since we've been, but I'm here. If
Well, it's
there's
good to see you.
questions. What's that?
It says good to see.
Yeah,
Made
likewise.
changes to it, right?
Yeah, so we received comments from both member Rissy and member Bruno, and we went through and those changes were incorporated into your packets for which we outlined which changes we incorporated and why, and then perhaps some that were not incorporated and also why. Again, for the record, the primary highlights of this plan include preservation and targeted redevelopment throughout the township.
And some of the pictures were updated also. along the way.
Yeah, so because of the quick turnaround time with our graphics department to like basically have to reformat the photos and so forth, and email snafus. But if there were photos that were intended to be in the master plan that are not in there, I would certainly think that that would be grounds for approval upon the condition that several
be
photos are
updated.
swapped out.
Okay.
Because it's not substantial, I prefer this photo of the trail over this photo.
Artistic thing.
Mhm.
Okay, member Bruno?
Can you said that there's a list of what was incorporated and what was not and
Mhm.
why or why not?
Mhm.
Where is that? Is that?
Yes, it was included in your packet, in memorandum format where it notes each global change and then
Completely
each
missed it.
page that was changed based on the comments or the markup that you had sent last week.
Thank you. I apologize. I missed that.
I went through each item to verify that they were actually.
Oh,
updated.
did you?
Yes.
You got more time than me? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm retired. I can do that.
Yeah, right. No, it's, and I apologize for the, grammar errors and things like that in difference of opinion and wording and so forth. But I think, if everyone's comfortable with where we're at today, that this is a good opportunity to move forward.
We also received comments from Vice Chair Reese,
Yep, incorporated.
which were incorporated. So I appreciate that. We also received some fairly detailed notes from Rebecca Olson. I don't know if.
Those were received and reviewed, I believe, right?
We all read them, but they came in after the 63-day review period, so,
They came in late, yeah.
yeah, so no.
Okay.
Seem appropriate to review them further.
Any questions for Danielle?
I had a couple just minor ones.
Mhm.
What was that sound?
I'm not sure, maybe someone got.
That was Andrea telling you to stop.
Oh, stop.
You reached your quota for the night of words.
Like a siren.
She's usually not that subtle.
You don't want to know what happens if you keep talking.
So on page 58 of the action plan, relationship between future land use and zoning,
Sure.
you have farmland preservation and rural rural residential. Then when you go to the actual map,
Mhm.
it's rural preservation rather than residential. So the table and the map are just slightly different.
Mhm.
And I think most everywhere else it's rural residential. So I think only the map differs and I don't know which one you were.
Residential, thank you.
That in the future land use map?
Yeah, it says, the future land use category is rural preservation. Nope, rural residential, the map says rural preservation. That, I think that was an export issue. I'll make a note.
And then on that future land use map, there used to be a cemetery on the corner of Craft and 52nd.
It's still there.
It's still there.
It's just small.
But it's not shaded. It went from, I think, a green to a purple. I think it was park before and I commented that it should be cemetery.
Yeah,
And now it's purple. It's
that
cemetery.
change was also made
Trying to
because I remember making that change in the map. And I'm not, it seems that there might have been an export like glitch and I'll
Okay.
fix that.
And then this is a question for my, I guess, colleagues more than I think. In looking at the future land use map, I had thought, and I just apologize, I didn't have the time to go back and look at the previous changes as part of the airport, but I had thought on a motion from member, it was a reconsideration, a motion from member Richardson that we had continued that open space to Craft Avenue. And on this, it appears to end at the where Thornapple River Drive meets 36th and then does a kind of a funky little jog. I'm sorry, I'm not more articulate, but if you have a copy of this in front of you, we did not, the future land use map in front of us has the rest shaded industrial to the east of Craft. And I thought we had decided not to do that.
I believe you're right. I had made a motion at one time for it to stop at the interchange of 36th Street and it was denied. And then I think you had made the motion that it extend to Craft.
Correct. So the map kind of differs there. And similarly.
I'm sorry, can we back up on that? I don't recall this conversation. Perhaps
I don't
Can-
think
can
you were
you
here when we
elaborate?
were debating the future land use map.
Was that during a meeting?
It would have been, what, a year ago? No, 7, 8 months
Is
ago?
that when Visser came to do the development and everything and we
We
kicked
did
it
a-
to the township?
Actually, it was a
We
lot
kicked it,
longer
and they
ago
kicked
than
it
that.
back.
We did a
Yeah.
preemptive future land use edit before we contracted McKenna, I think, to look at future land use.
Okay.
That's somewhat correct?
And then the township board adopted it
Correct.
sometime after.
Look, after it got kicked back to us and then we
Right.
extended it to Kraft and then they adopted it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
It was probably, I don't know, 6, 8 months ago.
Yeah.
Are we?
So I do have a little bit of concern, and our attorney maybe can clarify this, but if we're talking about amendments now to the future land use map.
Oh,
Compared
we
to
we
what's
already
already
made that
been.
amendment. That was part of
Yeah.
the vote.
It
So,
was?
Yes, it was
Okay.
absolutely part of the vote.
And the township board approved it too,
Yeah,
I think.
and the township board
Good deal.
approved,
Okay,
so.
but
Your map is
that's
wrong,
your
not-
current future land use map, though, not the proposed future land use. map.
Correct, so we'd like to retain what's in the current.
A lot of time was spent on that map. I
Even though I don't
don't want to go
necessarily-
back over that again, but.
No, that's fine. I just, am confused how
Not
this
fine.
never was brought up until this point and how I wasn't aware of that, but that's okay.
Had a lot of staff changes, so some things fall through the cracks, unfortunately.
No, and that's okay. It's just, I would have come prepared with a brand new map had that could have been ready to go. But that's beside the point. Okay, let me just double check. And then what was the second?
And the next one, again, I'm looking to my peers here, that my memory, my recollection might not be correct. I'm zooming in a different area of the map. I think it's 2,800 Thornapple River Drive, and this is one that I believe I had in my original list. It was not shaded as park. I think it was village, and now it appears to be shaded as cemetery.
I believe that is the current location of the pet cemetery. Is that correct?
No, 2,800 Thornapple River Drive is a unused piece of
Let me see.
parkland, open space.
It's a lot that we own that we have not developed, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that the one, Tim?
Yeah, but
The riverfront lots?
Is that 2,900? I think it is.
I thought it was 2,800. I could be wrong.
I don't.
You're
But
talking
it's,
about
I don't think it's the cemetery.
Park. What's
No,
that?
I-
No, on the other side,
Oh.
Rob, we bought, that-
Oh, it's like 4 properties.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
the one.
Yep.
Yeah,
The split rail fence in front of it currently.
yeah,
The old board about that.
Mm,
I see that. but
Uh,
yeah, he's right.
that-
It is shaded. Yeah.
That should be
Tree. You do?
the shade of, the darker shade of green, public, semi-public.
I think so. I think so. Or, I don't know, or would it be the same color as Tassel Park? Maybe the lighter shade of green? I don't think it's turquoise. I don't think it's cemetery. I don't know.
No,
I'm pretty expert in
yeah.
it.
Let's
Maybe
see.
Maybe it's a future cemetery.
And then while you're-
So I would say, probably public, semi-public would be most appropriate in this case, since it is township owned, that in the event it would be parkland or something of that nature.
I wouldn't argue with that. And then the next one, kind of, again, I'm zooming in on the map, kind of panning. And I have to find the descriptor for this. I believe at a meeting, I thought we voted on this. I thought, because there's a great debate on where it ended. I thought 2899, 2915, 2923, and 2965 Thornapple River Drive were part of the village. And that's why on page 39, it says the center of activity within the Cascade Village core is intended to be located around the intersection of Cascade Road and Thornapple River Drive. If we don't have those as part of the village, I don't know how that could be.
And we talked
the
about
core.
with her.
Are you referencing those current residential properties that are on the north side of, sorry, I'm trying to pull up the map.
I believe
here.
he is. I believe he's referencing the same properties I referenced in my
Yep.
comments.
So I received direction from township, from township supervisor and township manager and the steering committee at that time to keep those properties as residential, given the longevity and legacy of those residential, single-family residential character in that area. But I apologize for not explaining that further. Appreciate
Oh, that's fair. But then does that change the opinion on page 39 that the center of activity will be located on the intersection of Cascade Road and Thornapple River? Because there's not much there then.
Let's see here.
I wasn't sure if something changed. It sounds like it has, but then I think it changes that core, doesn't it? Because there's nothing there to make a core.
Cascade Road and Thornapple River. So I would say not necessarily, because that's your like what many folks like to refer to as your 100% corner in your like village area, where you have your buildings that have like zero setback. You have the historic township hall located there. There's Tassel Park located right across the street. So I would still argue that that's likely going to be a center hub for commercial and commerce and walkability and bikeability and business activity and all of that. But it's not necessarily to say that that gets taken away from because the properties, you know, to the west, to the southwest are residential in nature.
Scott?
I just wanted to say that I think, and I be careful I say this, but we've identified that this future land use map is not accurate. So take my comments with a grain of salt. But on this future land use map, I noticed the utility service boundary, I believe, is incorrect on the southeast corner where it extends down Whitneyville Road towards 96. I could be wrong, but maybe that's right. I just would ask that staff double check that, because we had a lot of discussion about that also at a prior meeting. So I just want to make sure that it's in alignment with what we have previously discussed.
Boundary for that.
Incorrect in what way?
It may have followed Buttrick all the way to 96. I just wanted clarification from staff that that is what we had decided. I thought maybe it was pushed a little further north than that, but I thought it would followed 40, no, it's not 45th Street either. I thought it followed Buttrick from Cascade Road to Whitneyville. I didn't think it had that triangle that came down. It's a small thing, but I just want to make sure it's in line with what we had discussed before. Does anybody recall?
You made it smaller, I remember.
We did make it smaller. I just
But
don't know if
but
it
I
was,
thought-
if
I
it was
thought-
this big or if it was smaller or this small or.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Cause I thought the idea was to not expand it, and
No, to
currently the
make it
utilities
smaller.
end at Cahoon, which is significantly further north of where we're showing it on the map near Harbor View.
I thought.
So it's supposed to stop at Buttrick and Whitneyville, but on the map, it stops.
I think it's supposed.
45th in Whitneyville kind of junction.
I believe we had wanted it to stop closer to, you know, Whitneyville Cascade Road, Whitneyville Buttrick, that area. And here it makes a pretty significant jog to the south.
What page are you on? You know?
59 of the packet.
That correlates with my
Yes.
memory, but I couldn't tell you specifically. I don't remember the protrusion.
We spent a lot of time drawing that map. Or talking about that boundary. I don't recall what meeting that was. It was probably the same one we approved the future land use map, I would think. Does staff have any recollection of when we did that?
I mean, this might have been before Andrea was on board.
The service boundary has not changed since I've been here in February.
Yeah.
Has the map changed since you were here?
No.
Okay, so all of this must have happened right before you got here.
We made it smaller.
Truthfully, I don't recall discussing that either. And not to say that I'm not correct or that I'm correct in that, but what I do think,
That's okay.
as I mentioned, what I do think that we're kind of treading in a little bit in that territory is if we're making these changes to the future land use map, especially with regard to the utility service boundary, I would be a little bit concerned about that teetering on public comment. And I don't know if our attorney has a similar opinion on that. I think, you know, cemetery, public, semi-public, you know, that's not substantial, but the utility service boundary does give me a little bit of pause. And even further to that point, I'm available. If anyone wants to call or email me with questions, comments, or concerns on any of this, please do so anytime. I could have had this ready and done prior to this meeting and I apologize that it's not, but what I'm getting at is I would like to like have a clear pathway forward for all of us. So that way we all have the same expectation moving into these meetings and so forth. On what that process looks like, whether if it's you to contact Andrea and then she'll forward it to me, you know, whatever staff prefers, but.
I guess I've raised some points, so I apologize too, but we received this on Wednesday.
No, let's be clear. The day that I started, you requested hard copies of the master plan with that future land use map in it. That was February 5. You got hard copies of that on February 26th-ish. Everyone had hard copies and digital copies because you requested both of them since the middle of February. You brought this to open up the public comment period at the end of February. We opened and closed the public comment period. We mailed all of the utilities. We mailed our adjacent property, our adjacent municipalities, the school boards. We did all of that. Then we handed another copy of this back to you 2 weeks ago. With
Well,
that same master, with
I guess,
that same
Andrea,
future,
if you're-
please let me finish.
Okay.
With that same future land use map. Then you provided us with a document with markups on almost every single page, and we cleared our schedule. And we spent Danielle and I spent an entire day going through every single edit that you requested. Nowhere in those edits from any of you did you suggest any changes to the future land use map. It's your decision today what you would like to do, but I want to be clear on what you requested of us since I started in February and where we're at today and what Danielle has done. Besides that, go ahead and make your decisions.
Member Reese?
Every time I read this, I notice something, and these are things that I noticed tonight sitting here. I didn't notice them prior, so I apologize. But when he brought up his points, I took a closer look at those pages, and that's when I noticed these items.
Do you think we should table it for another 2 weeks?
I would
No,
I would second Mr. Reese's. I'd say it's 135 pages or something. Every time I read it, I find something new. I'm not going to, I guess, apologize for that. I wish I was a better proofreader, but for someone to infer that we've missed our opportunity to find errors, I would challenge that more eyes need to be on it. There's this many errors. I am insulted at your insinuation, and I'll leave it at that.
Member Nordic?
I'm gonna make a motion that we make the following updates and then recommend adoption of the master plan by the township board. Make the following changes: that we update 52nd and Craft to a cemetery, that the future land use map reverts to the map that we decided on a few months ago, that we change 2900 Thornapple to the appropriate color, and that we bring the utility boundary back to its original state. Or I think, and I want to be really clear on the utility boundary. It's whatever it is today. I think we have it wrong in here. So I think it is a clerical error by its nature, right? Whatever it is, let's change it.
Member Reese?
I looked up the minutes of when we approved the utility boundary, and the map is correct for the utility boundary.
Okay, so I'm not going to say, forget everything I said about the utility. It's not meaningful.
Well, and that's not to say we can't change it, but
We don't need to change it. We don't, that is my motion. If anybody would like to support it.
Support.
All right.
Okay, motion by member Nordike, supported by member Richardson. Any further discussion?
No, I'd like to say one thing real quick. Sorry. Just a general comment.
Okay, Al?
We understand that you guys work hard on this, really do,
Yeah.
but don't jump down our throats when we catch things that are wrong. We want it done right. We live in this community. This is a big deal to us. I understand this is just a job for you guys. This is a big deal for us. All right? And so don't jump down our throats when we catch stuff that's wrong. We're just trying to make it the best document can be. That's it. All right. I'm off my.
And in that vein, I can contact you later, but there's 6 other sentences there. I'd belabor this.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's been supported.
On this, I think it's pretty important.
Yes, it's very important. Andrea?
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
member Richardson,
Yes.
member Bruno,
No.
member Moxley,
Yes.
Chairman Moxley, I apologize. Member Rissy,
Yes.
member Nordike,
Yes.
member Roland.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-1.
6-1.
Said we were gonna be done with this in January. I feel like we missed that by a little
A
bit.
long ways.
Just a
Member
little.
Reese?
We did spend a lot of extra time on this and thank you for your work. on it.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea.
And the discussion, if anybody wanted to look on that future land use map, did happen on September 18th of 2023.
Yeah, I remember it was.
And I think that most of what's in there, I didn't confirm all of it, but in those minutes appears to have been, in that map. It just.
Thank you. Yeah, I apologize if I sound defensive through this. I've just been, as I mentioned,
Ready to be
I'm
done.
available. I'm available. And if you have problems, please contact me so I can have it ready for you at the meeting. So we don't have to do this every time.
And
That's my point.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Question. Are we at the point where we can do the resolution of adoption? Or anybody who has problem with that?
We have to do that after the board approves it. We just make the recommendation that they adopt the resolution is done afterwards,
We
right?
Do have to have, or for the resolution
did, didn't we?
is to
No.
adopt and then forward
Right here.
that approval recommendation to the township board.
That was the intent of
That
my,
was-
I can amend my, yeah, that was, I mean, it was recommend to approve and.
And pass it on.
May I ask a question to legal counsel a moment?
Yes, Member Reese?
When the planning commission votes on a resolution, does that require a roll call vote?
I don't believe your bylaws require it. Typically, in those situations, what we would do is if a specific member of the planning commission requests a roll call vote, then we will do that.
Okay.
But your bylaws and just from a legal standpoint, don't require automatically a resolution to be approved by a roll call vote. And I think your bylaws only require a roll call if there's certain township expenditures that are going to be
It's a very consistent answer. Thank you.
Okay,
hopefully it was shorter this time and you remembered the question.
all right, so by voting yes, we basically adopted the resolution. Included it.
Sweet.
All right. Well, then let's move on to Article 11. Any visitors who wish to speak?
On anything.
Anybody online? Okay, Article 12, other business. Yes, Chris.
Yes, I, as your secretary, have been, striving to help staff with the minutes. And with that, being said, if you have amendments to the minutes, send them my way too. I'm gonna try and figure out a Dropbox solution for you, so you can just put it there. I'm pointing at Ryan.
What about red lines? Like, like a contract where you could just redline
Well,
it?
that's what he does.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to come up with a solution where you can just dump that. And my plan is on Sunday nights, I'll compile them all and then send them to Andrea. She can modify it Monday morning. And then by the time we're here, life's good. I just wanna, if we can short circuit some of what we're going through with the minutes at the meeting.
That would help.
But could we
yeah.
do that in a different order though? Cause that means we have to read the minutes twice.
Bingo.
I don't want to read the minutes twice. I don't mean to be rude, but could we? You get what I'm saying? So like today, apparently the minutes that were in the packet were different than minutes that were sent to us. So Scott and I are making edits to something that's moved. It's a moving target. So I don't
That's-
know that becomes.
That's my concern is last time we heard legal counsel made it clear that we couldn't do that.
Are you sure the minutes were different? Because we didn't change the packet at all.
Well, I thought edits had been already made.
No, she sent me draft minutes before you all got them.
He got draft minutes the Friday
Okay.
before
The packet went out.
Okay. All right, so he got the draft.
He reviewed.
You sent us his draft. Or what he,
Corrected, yeah.
okay, that's great. That's the way it should be.
That makes sense so far, but then. So I tried today to follow the new process. I couldn't get it to you. But how would that work? So if I sent you. My chicken scratches, which were 42 meg, but it's half the file before, I tried to shorten it. I took the rest out. You would make those edits.
We would make all the edits, but what you have to understand is if it says walked versus walk, that is not a substantial edit that we need to specifically talk about, and legal
Okay.
counsel can clarify. That is not a substantial effort or edit
Material.
that we need to spend, 10 minutes of the beginning of our meeting talking about.
Right.
Just, okay, so then we could bring to you, look at, here's the things that were changed that are substantial. You would vote on the amended, whoever could make a motion on the amended minutes.
My concern is that if he sends you that, how do I know that he sent you that? So then I'm sending you the same edits, or we get to the meeting and I notice that, oh, hey, this word's misspelled.
Yeah.
It seems like
If you all send them to me, I can make a motion with the amended by taking all of yours and make the motion and say, hey, these are the
Yeah.
minutes that were in the packet. I'm making this motion with the amendment. That way it's just one person doing it.
Secretary.
Yeah, as a secretary, like I can do that. That's all. And if,
Obviously, if you bring minutes to us at 4:45, the day of the meeting.
Yeah.
That's when we start to have,
problems.
Chris, you do like a
mishap
SharePoint
in
where everybody has
what
access
was
and then
changed.
he can get on and he can
Matt.
see his red lines so that he
Yeah.
can say, oh, he's already taken care of it.
I can only speak for myself. There are weeks where I try
That's in
to, I
real
try to
time.
get your packet on the second you get it to me. But there are other weeks, like this was LPGA and we had a visitor in town and I did my work today, so I tried to
Sure,
get to as fast as I could.
understood. So you have
Um,
5 days.
Yeah.
This is the role of a planning commissioner.
Yeah.
To do the homework.
Yep, and I did the homework. So I guess back to, so Scott's first question was, is he changed the tense, I think, to asked, right? That was one of your comments. I think the bar was set maybe improperly, but in my 13 months on here, I think we had member Engel who would make similar comments. He was creating sentences, I guess, for lack of a better word. Are we just going to kind of a bullet format? Like, do you want grammatical fixes or just, I think probably in all honesty, 80% of what I presented tonight was grammatical, but 20% we had the wrong chair, we had the wrong motion, we had missing stuff, like we had said. The drive must be complete before permit, which wasn't correct, so that was material. So I would say only 20% was material.
I think definitely we want to get the motions right.
Okay.
I think the process that we just set tonight by saying, look, we're gonna reiterate who said what. So that we have on record who made that motion, who made that second. We did roll call votes because everything seemed to be, maybe everybody didn't agree on it. That gives us a lot easier of a time to make sure that we have the right people. Yes, that those grammatical, so that should hopefully go away.
we've had 2 meetings where we've had significant edits to minutes. But in the past, that was never the case. I mean, the minutes only take a couple minutes. So, right, so
are we
I
creating a
don't
fix or
think we need to
something that's not?
create, exactly, we don't need to create new policy because we had 2 sets of minutes that had a lot of edits.
I would agree with you, but is everybody on the same page? So we're not going to try to get edits and have the edits done by a single person and everything done?
Never. You're doing a horrible job.
Or are we?
I think everything should go to Chris.
So,
I second that. Oh, I'm sorry, was that a motion?
yeah, I think he wants his motion heard.
They want it all go to Chris, I'm fine with that too. What's that?
By when? Is there gonna be like a deadline now or?
Please,
What-
though, make sure that things are going to staff, because again, if you guys are doing things and then you come to us and you're like, hey, we made all these changes and why didn't you implement them? If we're not in on that loop, we don't know those things, so
Right.
staff.
So if you make a change, you need to send it to Andrea and
And
Chris.
Chris.
I
Is
got
that
5 more
is
things.
that what you're saying?
They're really
Yes.
So what you would prefer?
orange.
I'm a little concerned about this method, but I'm willing to give it a try, I guess. It sounds like,
I'm just trying to speed up the motion for the.
I know.
amendment. Like if I just have it all on one sheet of paper, and it's not something we have to do, guys. I'm just putting it out there as your secretary as a way to speed up the meeting. But if it's not helpful, then we don't have to do it.
I absolutely like it in theory. If we come up with a way to, I want my Mr. Rowland. Can we create a,
Like a SharePoint that everybody has access to and that you have red lines and then when Scott goes in, he can see that you're
No,
in there
we
right
need
now.
SharePoint, because now we're writing and we're deliberating on, we're not gonna do that.
I want to make sure that when each commissioner is communicating to Commissioner Nordike, what changes they have, that we're not getting into a round the horn sort of deal or CCing other commissioners so that it's turning into a deliberation outside the scope of the Open Meetings Act.
That's continually developing
Correct.
day by day.
should really go to the staff.
Let me ask Andrea a question. When do you receive the meeting minutes that are typed up from your staff?
So what we're doing is Nick is giving the minutes to me by Friday. He should have these done by this Friday. Then they get sent out to Chris. Chris usually, you know, this time.
It's not as detailed as these guys, and I don't ever expect to be. I aspire, but I won't get there. So, like, there's stuff I'm gonna miss.
You really aspire?
Then
Which
Chris
is-
gets-
which is fair, right?
That's why we have
Say
a,
we get them in the packet by Wednesday. We're aiming for Wednesday packets, which gives you, hopefully, if, you know, we can get them out in the morning. I know most of you work first shift, but that gives you Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and anytime Monday, you know, anytime during the day. So that's 6 days, 5 technically, to review the packet information.
but we need to give him reasonable, I'm guessing, like I said, he works first shift, so, so I'm sorry, Chris would need it by 8 AM Saturday?
No, I said I'd do it Sunday night. Just get
Sunday.
it to me sometime Sunday. I'm
Also,
just gonna make an
it's
amendment.
like, you know, it's really like just what happened. It doesn't. Yeah.
Can we just say 6 o'clock Sunday nights it?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
You snooze, you lose.
Yeah, and
I just have a couple quick things outside of the notes.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, want to congratulate class of 2024, specifically Go Rangers, but Northern and Eastern as well, but mostly Forest Hill Central. Yep, all right, that's 2024. Motions, I think we got to be careful. I feel like we're getting trigger on the motions and it's stifling some discussion. I just want to be careful of that. Timmy made a comment 2 meetings ago about the Kent County decided to use Cascade as a test road for some new paving, and I think we need to have somebody from the township reach out to Kent County and say, Cascade's not where you test things. You don't test things in Ada, you don't test things in East Grand Rapids, you don't test things in Cascade.
We got a free road out.
Well, yeah, it's a horrible road. And then the other thing is, I think we also need to reach out to Forest Hills, Central or Forest Hills Schools and have a conversation with them about, we thought we were partners with them, but apparently since they're selling the Burton building without giving us the first right, which we always thought we had, I think that's incredibly inappropriate.
So what I would encourage you to do, because all of those are not items for the planning commission.
I know, I just want it on the record and I'll reach out to Grace on this stuff, but I just think that stuff needs to be.
Yeah.
And I think other people need to know about it too. So. That was it.
Perfect location for a community park.
I don't know, but that's.
I just wanted to ask staff, maybe I'm curious what the other members here, I guess the ones that aren't having conversations, think about this, but in the past, when we had something in front of the planning commission, such as these fence cases, generally in the packet would be a snippet of the fence ordinance. And it's nice as a planning commissioner to be able to easily access and find that information. If you go to the website and you click, go to the reference and you click on
Yeah.
fences, you get a 1-page PDF that is guidelines, but it would be nice to see the actual the text in the actual ordinance. As you know,
Yeah, section 430. I included some snippets, but I can include the whole section if that's.
I'd like to read the section and then the other, so I had to look that up tonight, but I was curious for legal counsel on this. I did not see anywhere where it refers to a gate as being a fence.
It's in our
It does.
It does, because I didn't see it in the,
Gates and gatehouses are included in the definition.
when I looked at definitions for fences, for fence, it doesn't say anything about gates.
If you, in chapter 3 you're talking about, I'm talking about in section 430, it goes into detail about what the section covers. For the
Excellent.
requirements
Thank you.
of the location and height.
All right. Should those definitions be consistent? I mean, should we be updating The chapter 3 definition?
Yes, and we've
That's
noted
what
it
we're
in our
doing.
amendments.
Well, I keep hearing all these things about we're doing this, we're doing that, but nothing ever comes in front of us.
Just spent 8 hours, 16 hours of staff time when you.
I
We're
understand,
getting there.
and that's why I'm just asking the questions to make sure that
Yes.
it's noted.
Yeah, we want to clear up inconsistencies.
Thank you.
like that.
So
Trustee
we-
Nordic?
Are you done?
I'm just kidding, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a note of, last meeting, we took the tables out of the master plan for the density.
Yeah.
And I think we can start to see the wisdom of those being in there after the fence, what do we do here with this fence, what do we do here with that fence? And that's where that density is gonna come in and give us a guideline. I'd like to see those tables get back in there. Just put food for thought.
I'd like
Do
to
not
create
try to make
tables.
a motion.
No,
or
no,
reconsider.
I'm not right now.
Create tables. Those were just weren't direct. I didn't think they were, I think they're great. I think we just, let's build them. Like, let's take that on, right? I think that those weren't as descriptive as we would like. That was my only issue with the table. I think it's great.
You can see where
Oh, absolutely.
we
No, I think
now
we should.
have nothing for a guideline going
Yeah,
forward.
I think we should do that. Do we need it in the master plan, or can we just say this is the planning commission's guidelines?
Yeah, again, we adopt a master plan. The master plan is our guideline for adopting a new zoning ordinance. Now, we almost have the master plan adopted, depending on what happens at township board. But as we have been doing, now we're going to start digging through this messy zoning ordinance that has, weird requirements here and there. To that point, let me bring up, at your next agenda, you will have items, actually, I don't know if it's I think it's 7:15, you're going to have a few items. But then, no, 7:1, we'll have an introduction of the table of contents for the new zoning ordinance. And we'll have the use tables for uses in, each district. So we'll be able to start really digging into that. That's where we're going to need your input because you guys are the experts in this. So we're bringing your experts in your community. And we're bringing these tables to you. We're going to start setting up weekly or bi-weekly meetings at the township. They will be noticed, they will be public. The public is welcome to come, where we will have work sessions for each of these chapters so that you can bring your input on each of these chapters in real time. Then we will bring them to the planning commission where they will be reviewed. Go ahead.
I really,
He should recognize you, not me.
Member Bruno,
I loved your change table for the bylaws. Are you planning something similar? So when we look at the table, we know the baseline is there. Ads will be red or ads will be green or blue or something, and strike throughs are obviously things you're removing. Will it show the changes? Will the deltas be obvious, or are we
Yeah.
just?
It's gonna be harder because we're gonna be talking about, outdoor storage. For some reason, our outdoor storage is in the landscaping section of the ordinance, which it kind of makes sense because we're talking about trees for screening, but there are so many weird things that are out of place that it will be kind of a reorganization, and then we will introduce whether it's, we've talked a lot about land preservation, we've talked a lot about agritourism. Will then kind of pull out the extra items that we're recommending that we define.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
if you pull from a lot of places, but as long as you're pulling and say, these are the changes, because I know. I guess the three of us, we spent a crazy amount of time on use tables for farmland and ARC,
Yeah, I met with Danielle last week and
Okay.
reported on where we left off on that.
and that was painful. And that's just one little,
Again, remember, we're opening files, we're cleaning files, we're making sure that everything you've done in the past is integrated into the work that we're doing in the future. We'll get there.
it's tedious.
one question for Andrea, which I've asked previously.
You're gonna ask
But-
for conflict of preservation?
Exactly. Best guess. How long before you can get
so-
back into it?
The meeting that Madison was referring to, is we have started internally to sit down with Parks. Madison is there, Nick is there, Jessica's there. Who else am I missing? Danielle.
Hannah and Jade just couldn't make it to the last one, but is involved.
Yeah, so we're reading through everything that you have. We're gonna have a couple internal meetings where we get everything on board. I met with, Channing.
Matthew Channing.
Matt Channing. And actually it worked out perfectly because I had reached out to him at the same time that a farmer reached out to me and he was like, hey, I'd like to split some lots.
Good.
And I was like, well, are you sure you want to split lots? Maybe you should meet with this Matthew Channing, and he's actually in the process of putting together an application for the farmland preservation program
Good.
through the county. So I think I mentioned this quite a few months ago, but our plan is to tier 1, make sure that we meet up with the county on their regulation, and then we're going to put up, you know, a plan to coordinate well with them. So when an application comes in or a request for a lot split and agricultural land comes in, right away, we know, first, let's give them the option of talking to the county. Then second is that tier where we find the sweet spot between what the county doesn't accept, but is a priority for us, and then find funding mechanisms through, you know, either donations of land, the purchase of development rights from some of our areas that we don't mind seeing more density in, or can incentivize some bonuses. And then the last piece in preservation is going to be looking at the zoning ordinance for specific development comes in, if it's commercial and residential, that we will have landscaping requirements, open space requirements, lot coverage. I don't know, I can't think of anything else right now, and tree preservation regulations.
Okay,
So we'll bring all that to
Great.
you when we get there.
okay,
Give us another 6 weeks to 2 months.
okay. That's reasonable. Thanks for the update. Appreciate it. Any other business? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second,
Okay, motion by Chris,
second by me.
second by Alan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 7-0. We're done.